Mr Deputy Speaker, I rise to participate in the debate on the Building Industry Fairness Security of Payments Bill of 2017, and I note it is unusual for a Speaker to participate in a debate in this manner. And I do so because improving the security of payment for subcontractors is important to me. And in this regard, I'm speaking as the independent member for Nicklin and not as the Speaker of our Parliament. Members, when Sunshine Coast subcontractors lost everything in 2014 as a result of the collapse of the Walton's Construction Company, little did I realise then that in a few months' time I would be entering into an agreement with the next Premier of Queensland, the then Opposition Leader Anastasia Palaszczuk, and that agreement would lead to this bill being debated here this evening. And I thank our Premier and her government for acting and not allowing themselves to be bullied, to be intimidated by the big end of town, who clearly wanted to continue to be able to have access to use money rightfully owing to someone else for their own purposes. People have been critical of minority governments and our Premier. And can I say this is one real example of the strength of our Premier, her willingness to have a go, and that minority governments can deliver good outcomes for Queenslanders. And they will stand up to the big end of town like people that are behind the Master Builders Association, their ridiculous billboards out there pursuing a political campaign. And I'll take up the comments made by the member for Service Paradise later on. I also use this opportunity to acknowledge the very hard work of the Sunshine Coast Daily investigative journalist, Mr Bill Hoffman, and Les Williams, leader of the Subcontractors Alliance Group, who never gave up in continuing to highlight the disgraceful business practices of some of our leading construction industry leaders, people who have been using every trick in the book to get around our laws for the sole purpose of not paying subcontractors for the work they have done and are rightfully entitled to be paid for. Now, hopefully with the passage of this bill, and it appears clearly from the speeches this evening, it will pass. And then the appropriate regulations, we will see the start of the move to stamp out these sham business models that have been used by our construction industry and bring our construction industry into disrepute and have effectively destroyed the lives of many families in Queensland. Members, in my nearly 20 years in Parliament, I have seen how the big end of town has been able to influence government policy to the detriment of small businesses. We have seen the construction industry business model refined by some unscrupulous operators, where money rightfully owing to subcontractors is not paid to them when the work has been done and instead being used to cash flow other ventures or to avoid the taking out of loans and the payments of interest. And we've heard some of our leading construction companies saying, but that's the way it's always been. Well, no longer after tonight. We've also seen the unreasonable delaying of the payment of money for work done on terms which would be totally unacceptable in other businesses. Now, I understand why many people feel disillusioned and let down by our political system, especially subcontractors and small business operators who have worked hard all their life. They then lose their house and everything because some big players in the construction industry who have had the ear of the government are able to continue to use clever lawyers, accountants and avoid paying subcontractors for work they have done. Now, thankfully, we have a minister and a government which has shown when evidence is produced of the failure of our current laws, they will take action and they won't be coward to look the other way or allow themselves to be brought off by unscrupulous construction companies who want to continue to operate unfettered in Queensland and continue to be able to use for their own purposes money rightfully owing to subcontractors and small businesses. Now, in this regard, I note the political campaign which has been underway by the Queensland Master Builders Association against Minister Brenni. because of this bill. That's the reason, because of this bill. And I say to members of the Queensland Master Builders Association, shame on you all for allowing your organisation to be used to try to stop the passing of laws which are designed to improve the current laws and hopefully stop the continued operation of sham business models which are designed solely to use money rightfully owing to someone else for other purposes. Now, the member for Surfers Paradise made some comments earlier during the debate saying, oh, look, billboards, that's not a political campaign. Well, can I say, as a member of Parliament, if I had these billboards appearing in my election, I would say it's a jolly political campaign.
Order!
It's a jolly political campaign.
Order! Member for Nicklin, you, of all people, would know about props. Are you tabling that?
I am tabling it, and I'm using it to explain this is a political campaign.
Would you table that, please?
I'm more than happy to table it. Thank you. So, what we've seen is the Master Builders Association paying for billboards for the sole purpose to hope the minister is not re-elected. And then we see in the Courier Mail today, oh, here's a letter paid. Look, thanks, Mick, for doing something. Let's see if the Master Builders are prepared to go out there and replace those billboards I've tabled, copies of those, with their apology and thank you. With their apology and thank you. Because I say to the Master Builders Association, if you are not prepared, if you and your organisation are not prepared to replace the current critical billboards with the other wording of your letter that appeared in the Courier Mail, I am prepared to go to bat to support this minister in the next election campaign so he can hopefully return to this Parliament and continue the good work he has done and started tonight. Now, I know members, my detractors will say, oh, you're always been a Labor toady. Well, can I say to you this? My decision to do that, to take that action, is directly as a result of the action of those billboards that the Master Builders Association have been funding and putting up throughout our state. And I would urge other subcontractors, their families and their friends to join me if the Master Builders Association do not replace the current billboards with words similar to what appeared in the article in the Courier Mail today. Let's see what the Master Builders Association do now. Members, as an independent, I've not made that decision lightly, and I repeat, it is solely as a result of the actions of the Queensland Master Builders Association's disgraceful political campaign. While speaking about that matter, can I also reiterate that I will not be endorsing any candidate to replace me in the seat of Nicklin, which I've had the pleasure and honour to represent in this Parliament for some time, and I look forward to speaking more about that in the future. This bill is landmark legislation for Queensland. The issue in the building industry are well documented, and there is considerable evidence that these issues are not merely an interpretation of some unfortunate event in the history, nor an exaggeration of some unhappy but unusual incident, and nor mere fiction, as members of the Queensland Master Builders Association and others would have us believe. And I refer members to the following inquiries. The 2013 New South Wales Government inquiry recommendations that, in addition to legislative reform, the establishment of a cash retention trust scheme for subcontractors and the trial of project bank accounts. The 2016 Western Australian Government announcement that it would introduce mandatory project bank accounts and a code of conduct for state government-run projects between $1.5 million and $100 million. The 2015 Senate Standing Committee for Economics inquiry into insolvency in the Australian construction industry made 44 recommendations, including that the Commonwealth Government trial project bank accounts for a 2-year period, and it goes on. All of these recommendations had a lot in common. Subcontractors must be protected, that a fair day's work deserves a fair day's pay, that the poor payment practices are endemic in the industry, that insolvency impacts those most vulnerable and least protected in the industry, that the risk in the industry is borne by those least able to carry it, and critically that something must be done. This bill is the latest of reforms made by Australian state and territory governments over recent years, aimed at better security for the payment of people working in the building industry. Time's almost up. I commend the Minister, I commend our Premier and her government for doing something and not looking the other way. Congratulations, well done.
I thank the member for Nicklin, and I now call the Minister.
Mr. Acting